and with clear provisions as to how they go about their business, for us to create an open-ended field where any Nigerian, the bill doesn't even seek to say you have to be a lawyer or a senior advocate or have specific qualifications. But even if you were to say so, I believe that it will just amount to giving some few people the power to intrude into your privacy, the power to be used by political opponents to victimize perceived targets. I do not think that even the mover of this motion has reflected deeply enough about possible abuse. We have a duty in a democracy to protect the privacy of any Nigerian, whether small or powerful, to give tools to any Nigerian to be able to intrude into somebody's privacy and ask questions which ordinarily he has no right to do. Mr. President, I am extremely reluctant, and I urge my colleague, if we cannot shut down this bill at the second reading, and my position is that it should be shut down, if anybody thinks we need to do to revisit it, then it will require that we have all the details.
Particularly criminal issues. I don't think that my brother is right to say that we should shut down this bill. That is also unparliamentary. When a bill is before the Senate, nobody should say it should be shut down. You make your contribution for or against the bill based on facts and convincing reasons.
To undertake investigatory law services. They often work for lawyers in several cases. Many work for insurance companies to investigate suspicious claims. Others do background checks and due diligence and render many other services.
Osunwere Territorial District of Osun State. Sir, I want to start by commending the mover of this very important and very timely bill. And I want to lend my voice by seconding it as the right thing to be done in Nigeria at this very crucial time. Sir, this bill seeks to regulate the activities of private investigators. I will know that these investigators are around and they have been doing businesses, whether we recognize them or not. But as a country that is moving in the right direction, it is very necessary and germane that activities be regulated and be licensed so that we can monitor their activities from day to day. The effort of this private investigators is very complementary in many dimensions, and this will assist our businessmen in the area mentioned by the mover in terms of fraud prevention, insurance fraud, affiliation, and many more, even in bank charges. We have employed so many of them, but since the bill is just trying to regulate the activities of these private investigators, I think it's a right step in the right direction. So I urge my colleagues to support this bill for the second reading. Mr. President, I so support.
Senators, my name is Mohamed Tahir Munguno. I represent Borno North Senatorial District. This bill is apt and germane, especially against the backdrop of the avalanche of private investigators that we find across the nooks and crannies of the country. And they are performing very vital function in complementing the effort of our security forces and intelligence personnel towards nipping in the bud criminality and criminal activities. So it is good that such an important sector should not be allowed to go unregulated, because it portends very serious and potent danger if left unregulated, because it is going to be subject to abuse and even encroachment upon the fundamental human rights of citizenry. And then by regulating them, it is also going to go a long way in stamping out quackery in the practice of private
that institution target individuals and agencies more or less for blackmail, and in the end, the federal government was so embarrassed that they had to be disbanded. I think that for this Senate to enact a law that will give a Nigerian to apply for a license, that will be sole license, such that he can carry out investigation on anyone. I saw here to prevent fraud prevention. That is what EFCC and the police are about. Corporate fraud, any manner of fraud, whether corporate individual. I think that it would be risky to license anyone to have the right to approach any one of us and ask certain questions because the law has empowered him so to do. It will just be a license for extortion, a license for blackmail, and unnecessary rivalry, and it will not be controllable. I think that if there was to be need, and I need to be persuaded that that need exists, to have private investigation, which is currently vested in about 3 institutions: the police, SIB within the police, DSS, and of course EFCC. All of these are charged explicitly, including ICPC. All of these are put in place. Thank you, Mr. President, for your very helpful comment. All of this exists for the one purpose: to investigate and, where convinced, to prosecute. For us to go beyond these institutions established by law with clear mandate as to what they can do and what they cannot do, and with clear provisions as to how they go about their business. For us to create an open-ended field where any Nigerian, the bill doesn't even seek to say you have to be a lawyer or a senior advocate or have specific qualifications. But even if you were to say so, I believe that it will just amount to giving so few people the power to intrude into your privacy, the power to be used by political opponents to victimize perceived targets. I do not think that even the mover of this motion has reflected deeply enough about possible abuse. We have a duty in a democracy to protect the privacy of any Nigerian, whether small or powerful, to give tools to any Nigerian to be able to intrude into somebody's privacy and ask questions which ordinarily he has no right to do. Mr. President, I am extremely reluctant, and I urge my colleague, if we cannot shut down this bill at the second reading, and my position is that it should be shut down. If anybody thinks we need to do to revisit it, then it will require that we have all the details, because we are not discussing, we are driving this vehicle without a dashboard. The law is not before us, the specific provisions is not before us, and sometimes the devil hides in the details. I submit with respect, Mr. President, that this bill does not merit blanket approval for second reading by these hallowed chambers under your able leadership. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Victor Ume, OFR. I represent Anambra Central Senatorial District. Mr. President, I rise to support this well-intentioned bill brought by the minority whip. I say so because the need for private investigators is to serve the purpose of bridging the gap where agencies enumerated now by distinguished Senator Shomole fail to do their work diligently. The country will have opportunity to have independent investigators, because there are so many cases we know that have arisen, but they have been swept under the carpet by these agencies he expressed they're mandated to carry out these investigations. Mr. President, there are so many issues of murder that have been reported to the police, and the police has not been able to do any diligent work to investigate them. Particularly when they go into it and see very highly connected people around it, they sweep it under the carpet. Nigeria cannot afford to proceed this way. From this bill, you can see that civilized nations of the world have private investigators. And what this bill is seeking to do is to regulate the standard of practice for those who will be licensed as private investigators in Nigeria. Not anybody who applies will be registered. One is that the authorities should be satisfied that the applicant who applies to be registered as a licensed investigator, private investigator, will have the credibility and the expertise, the wherewithal to help us to crack unresolved issues, particularly criminal issues. I don't think that my brother is right to say that we should shut down this bill. That is also unparliamentary. When a bill is before the Senate, nobody should say it should be shut down. You make your contribution for or against the bill based on facts and convincing reasons. So this bill is a very important bill. And I know that if we pass it in the end, you will see that what due diligence is applied in appointing people and licensing them to be private investigators. A lot of unresolved crimes and matters will be dealt with. Nobody will be able to cover anything anymore. The issue of Obla, which he alluded to, is just too outlandish to use it as an example.
He did not mention the name.
No, he mentioned Obla. He did, and in the chamber. So what I'm saying is that this bill, for all intents and purposes, is desirable. We should be able to support it and pass it. The licensing of these people should be able to regulate the conduct of people so licensed. It's not for witch hunting or somebody going to investigate anybody at his whims and caprices. The court can make use of the evidence produced by a private investigator, particularly when the authorities that are vested with these powers are not able to assist the court with diligent investigation reports. Thank you, Mr. President. I think that the sponsor of this bill should be commended because it's very, very important.
Edo South Senatorial District. Mr. President, I stand to support this bill, and I'll say why. The private investigators bill or function is not something new at all. It's something that is practiced in most places outside Nigeria. In other words, places like the UK, the United States, and the rest. I've used them when I practiced law in New York. What they do especially, the insurance companies use them most especially. You see situations where someone is filing for insurance claim that he couldn't go to work, and so they are paying him monthly for not being able to go to work as a result of an accident or thereof. But he's at the beach playing beach football and enjoying himself. The private investigator goes there. He doesn't know who they are. They record him and present it before the insurance company, who then deny the claims based on the lies that he has projected. And it's so in so many other areas. There are so many investigations that they carry out that if you leave it to the ICPC, like you mentioned, EFCC and the rest, those ones are already bogged down with serious matters that is taking their time. This might not even attract them at all as something that you should do. And so these private investigators will fill in these gaps, as has already been said. And so I stand to support this bill in all its ramifications. I know that by the time it comes up again and we look at the nitty-gritty of it, then we all can say one or two things about it. So, Mr. President, thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. I tend to disagree with most of the speakers. For these reasons, Mr. President, on this bill.
Are you in support of the bill or against?
I'm against the bill, Mr. President. I'm against the bill because if you are asking people to go and be licensed, I presently practice private investigation in this country. I investigated a lot of people in this country as a forensic accountant. I cannot go for another agency for me to be licensed to practice. I give evidence in court, and lawyers can investigate and give evidence in court. So we don't need to put people to go into another round of requirement to go and be licensed before they practice. This is a new thing in Nigeria. Most of the institutions, most of the professional bodies do investigate and do report and do even go to court and give forensic evidence in court, Mr. President. So I think it's just a duplication of effort to me personally, and I support the single Senator Adams Oshomole. Because I knew the work of the gentleman he called. I knew what he did when he was there as a person to recover public property. I knew the people he blackmailed. I knew what, even his interview, if I show you now. But we are not mentioning one person, we are taking one person as instance. Every professional body in this country can investigate and can report and can go to court and present. So I think we don't need to bring another body to regulate people or to make people register or license. Thank you, Mr. President.
This is some bodies that are charged with the duty of investigating all manners of crimes, be they financial, be they civil, be they even political. So I don't think there is any justification for us to establish or encourage any individual, no matter how professional such individuals may be, to be licensed to investigate. Our country is still a developing economy, a nascent democracy, and I think we are still growing, and we need to grow more before we create certain institutions or make laws that will affect the smooth running of our democracy. I want to associate myself completely with the position advanced by Senator Adams Oshomole that this is a recipe for interpersonal fights. You know that our country has certain fault lines, religious, ethnic, and all of that. So empowering individuals with a license to investigate, Mr. President, time will come where your own political enemy will now say, I have a private license to investigate you. So I will advise that we tread carefully in transplanting certain agencies that have existed in more developed countries. Nigeria is still crawling, and we need to strengthen our oversight responsibilities to see to it that the existing investigative bodies do their jobs efficiently instead of duplicating them with additional investigation agencies. I therefore oppose that this bill be read the second time.
My name is Saliu Mustafa. I represent Kwara Central. Your Excellencies, distinguished colleagues, I want to lend my voice in opposing this bill of the establishment of private investigators. I'm doing this simply out of also what my colleague Senator Ned has said, that in faraway United States where it's been practiced, he has also enjoyed the use of this. At the same time, I want to correct that notion that over there in faraway America now, the existence of private investigators is a subject of debate now, whereby citizens are also not happy with the conduct and the manner in which the private investigators have been turned into mere witch hunting of either people's personal relationship in terms of marital and some other issues. I would prefer we look inward on how to strengthen our institutions, whereby we should not be comparing private investigators with federal agencies. it will be wrong for us to be saying the federal agencies are not doing their work. As such, we want to empower private investigators. Rather, we should be strengthening our institutions so that they can meet up to their responsibilities. And if we must go this way, there are certain criteria and certain standards that must be set before you start looking at the work of private investigators. Which one of them is establishing a national forensic institute where every evidence is being brought there, where you can subject it to critical forensic analysis. When you have such institutions, then there is no issue of anybody compromising evidence that you are afraid of or you are scared of. So I will want to support the last speaker, Senator Zam, in also opposing the establishment of private investigators at this stage of our development.
Bill, the issue you raised now was one of my major concerns. Somebody said that several men will not be very comfortable with it because it will impinge on their freedom of going to the other way. So, Mr. President, I will actually advise that we put the question. But, well, let me go back and rework it and also consult more of my colleagues. I will do further consultations and